Can you share like real example where Agile has significantly improved like a data project's outcome?
Yeah, absolutely. One of my previous company, the main stakeholders, they wanted an interactive dashboard to provide visibility into the results of a new hire training program. And the program itself was relatively new. So they were constantly changing the contents of the program and the data that needed to be collected and the insights that were needed, to truly understand how well these new hires were doing in the program. They were still figuring out the stakeholders were still figuring out, were they asking the right questions on the assessments? Did they need to increase the number of assessments? Did decrease the number of assessments? This project was going to evolve over time. And so this was why it was like a perfect example of how an agile methodology could help and work in a project like this. So we were a relatively small team. We had limited capacity. We couldn't dedicate a group of us to work on this project full time. So what we did was we said we worked with them and devised a plan. We would work 6 weeks on, 6 weeks off. The 6 weeks that we were on, we were dedicated to finalizing the requirements, making sure everything was clear, development work, testing, and then deploying a new version at the end of those 6 weeks. And so you think about it, our release cycle was every 12 weeks, but it was like a
Mhm.
6 week development cycle. Um, and so then after we deployed the initial version, they had 6 weeks to go look at the product, use it, figure out what they liked, what they didn't like, put together some enhancements, figure out if they needed to change their program at all, which happened a few times. And so they had 6 weeks to gather all this feedback and consolidate it and give it to us in the form of new requirements so that when those 6 weeks were up, we could get the ball rolling and start development right away on the next iteration. And so this sort of like continual agile partnership was really beneficial, especially given the fact that it was the constantly evolving nature of their program. They needed to see new data. They wanted to change the way that they could view the data. But they didn't know it yet because they were still building out the program themselves. And
Mhm.
so rather than wait for them to figure everything out, probably would have taken forever, we worked in this iterative partnership with them to where, okay, we deployed this first version. They might have changed some things and come back to us. Now we need to see this new piece of data that we weren't collecting before. That's fine. It'll go into the next release, next 6 weeks. And so that was the way that we operated with that group. And it turned out to be a really successful project.
Yeah. Obviously, when building up products and things like this, it's going to be times when you can't get it all right, can you? You're not going to be you're not perfect straight away, are you? It's going to be
No.
things like, and it's also pretty opens up opportunities as well, doesn't it? Like, oh, actually, look, we could do some whatever, increase an enhancement here where it's going to dramatically improve the product.
Hmm.
So I guess it helps there, I see, on your journey, it's like to where you're going to make the improvements or maybe get rid of something. You never know.
Yeah, in an ideal world, for every single project, you would have clear cut requirements
Mhm.
and you would go through development and you would go through testing and get your sign off and deploy to prod and everyone would cheer hooray. This isn't the real world. Like this is the real world. Sorry, that's not the real world. This is
Yeah.
things change, people's mindsets change, new ideas come up. There are always going to be enhancements, things that you can improve. And so I think that mindset is good for these. And while you would love for your projects to be really clearly defined, you have to accept the fact that not everything is going to be everything's going to be perfect and built out by the time that development's going to start. And so that's the whole purpose of this iterative process is you know that you're going to release version 1, and while you're going to get feedback, there's a version 2 coming, right? It's not just you're just going to get a bunch of negative feedback from people and they're going to be upset at you and oh, that's the end of it. No, this is good feedback. How can we improve the product? And we'll do that again once with our next release.